there, Sarah from 17 once again. This is just a quick, informative piece about Devil May Cry 4 Special Edition. So recently the achievement list has been documented online, and I picked it up on xboxachievements.com. I'll leave a link in the description, and this video is going to be me going through the list, because back in the old days I was quite the achievement advocate, and I still every so often get that itch to get these illusory rewards, and I just want to go down this list because it surprised me so damn much I just had to say something about it. I played Devil May Cry 4 back in, 2008, and I got all of the achievements on that game. Took me a while to do it, took me a while to get my skill up to a level where I could do it, and then eventually it all came together and I managed to get 1000G, or a Platinum Trophy, but I don't think that game actually had trophies on PlayStation because they didn't have them back then. But anyhow, I completed it, and it's a proud completion, even though now I look back, it's not really that difficult once you've spent some time with the game, but it's still way above average than anything the average person who picks up that game is ever going to want to do or want to invest time in. So, move several years later to this re-release that's coming in the middle of June, towards the end of June, and we have a completely different list that is hauntingly familiar, but different in enough ways to actually quite scare the prospect of going for some of these achievements, which is both a good and bad thing. So let's have a look at it. So the first one is simple. Clear all missions in human mode. That is easy, for anybody that doesn't know. That was on the last game. The next dozen are the exact same as the previous one. Devil Hunter mode complete, Son of Sparda complete, Dante Must Die complete, Heaven or Hell complete, Hell and Hell complete. All of those are within the boundaries of pretty doable. Some of them will take time, skill, effort, depending on your experience with the game. Then we have the Throne of Glory, which is clear all game modes, which I believe is beating all the difficulties and beating perhaps the Bloody Palast to get that one. So that is a pretty steep task, but once again it's still doable. It takes time, but it's very doable, and it's very similar to the last list. And then we go into this area, which is once again very similar too. However, some of the values here have been changed, so a lot of these quite difficult undertakings are seemingly less rewarded this time. So you have all missions in human mode, Devil Hunter mode, Son of Sparda mode, and Dante Must Die mode, S-ranked. This is where the game gets difficult. This is when you really need to start playing at a level higher than most people to do this kind of stuff. And even then, it's not that bad. If you're struggling on Dante Must Die, I have a walkthrough that might be able to help you get those ranks, and it'll push you hopefully to a skill ceiling where you become a better player as a result of that. Then we have clear all secret missions, exactly the same. Acquire all Nero skills, all Dante's skills, equally similar to the last one. Then we have clear all Bloody Palast mode stages with an S ranking. So this is a little bit confusing in the wording, but I think it's just the same as the last time. Beat the Bloody Palast and get an S rank. However, the wording says all stages with an S ranking, so it makes me think, or at least hope, that maybe we can pick individual stages of the palace and that each of the stages are ranked, but I think that's highly unlikely, and I think it literally is just copy and pasted from the last version. So, be interesting to see if that's any different. Once again, this is not as hard as people think, it's just there's a couple of levels later on that are very tricky depending on how you've managed your resources, your life and your time. My Kryptonite level is the double blitzers. I don't even know why. There's something about that flaw that if my run's going to end, it's going to end there. Then we have defeat 100 enemies and defeat 1000 enemies. I think both of these were in the previous one. And then you have complete a stylish combo, complete a SS smoking style combo, and then a triple S combo, which you can get that off of your first encounter with the upgraded Angelo. So that's another simple trio of achievements that was in the last game. And then here we have a new one. So this one is clear all missions in Legendary Dark Knight mode, which I'm super excited for because I've never played that mode. I didn't do PC. And then you have S rank all missions in that difficulty. So This sounds challenging, and potentially it could be, but there's something worth noting about this difficulty. I believe it is set to Son of Sparda by default. There's just a shit ton more dudes. So the bosses are probably not going to be too bad, and although some of the rooms might be hellish, the enemies won't devil trigger and the damage variables are much lower. So I don't know how difficult this is, but I get the feeling if you can do it on Dante Must Die, then this will just be a logical next step. So that shouldn't be too bad. I'm excited for that one. Interesting stuff. Then we have Clear the Game with Virgil. Cannot wait for that one. Then there's Clear the Game with Lady and Trish. Once again, very excited to see just how different those characters are and if they're going to give this game even more longevity, considering I've put quite a lot of time into this one, so very curious about that one. Then we have Clear all Bloodied Palast stages with Nero. So Nero is easy mode in the Palace, I think. I think he's just so damaging, so easy to utilise, and he has everything going for him. He's the character that I will be S-ranking the Palace with. But then there's Clear all Bloody stages, all Bloody Palace stages with Dante. I've never done that. I don't really play Dante that much in Devil May Cry 4. No idea why, it's just one of those things I never really dabbled with. I did all the essentials with him, I had fun with him, but I never really took him into the Palace and did much there. Then you have Clear all Bloody Palace stages with Virgil, which I'm very interested in because I can't wait to play as Virgil, and then once again with Lady and with Trish. So this is asking you to beat the Bloody Palace a lot of times, and then there's an achievement additionally on top of this for clearing all the Bloody Palace stages with all the characters. And the one thing to bear in mind here, folks, for those of you that are a little bit, intimidated by this, you can beat the Palace with a super character, and I assume each of these characters will have a super variation, which will make life a lot easier. Of course, it'll ruin your rank, but it will make it doable. But that being said, it's going to give you a lot of practice for something that's coming up here, which to me is the most insane thing I've read in a very long time. So we have Clear the Bloody Palace within 2 hours. That is more than manageable. You should be averaging an hour to an hour and a half, depending on your efficiency, on a full run of the Palace. There's no reason for it to take 2 hours. I just don't understand how that could be possible. And then it's this, for 50G, Untouchable. Defeat Dante in the Bloody Palace without taking any damage. So this is where I am devoutly wishing that you can select the stage of the Palace and then start from there, because if you can't, this is the sickest run back of any game I've ever seen. So bear in mind I just said the Palace should take anywhere between an hour and a half. Well, Dante is on the final floor of the Palace. He's on Dante Must Die difficulty by default, and he has guns. He has a shotgun, he has ebony and ivory, he has the ability to round trip and throw his sword at you. This dude can damage you insanely from any distance, which means you're going to have a great grasp of the fight, which, don't get me wrong, back in my prime, I used to destroy Dante, and I've never really found him to be that difficult once you understand how he works, but no damage is rare. And not only that, just think how fucking nervous you're gonna be. Like, fighting Dante at the end of the Palace is nerve-wracking enough because you've got there, and if you die, you've got to do it all again. But now you're trying to do it without taking any damage, and this to me is... that... just wow. Like, there are no words for that. That is a sign of true top-tier, like, Devil May Cry 4 play, because that is beyond the call of skill and fortitude and just not cracking under pressure. That is insane. Completely insane. I am terrified of the notion of that. Not the fight itself, because you can cheese Dante, it's just that run back. Just imagine if it starts, the second it starts he shoots you. Like, fuck me. That is terrifying. Then we have defeat the Bloody Palace in turbo mode, which will be simple. Get used to turbo mode and you'll be just as fine as you would in any other mode. Then you have defeat Dante with an SSS ranking in Son of Sparda or higher, and then this continues on to all the bosses. Defeat each boss in the game with the highest rank on the kill, which sounds a little bit intimidating, and this is new, this folks, because this was not in the last version. But a lot of these bosses, if you know what you're doing, you can really keep that style high, and you can definitely finish them off with a nice, awesome finishing move and bump it up to the triple S's. This is not that tough, especially on Son of Sparda where they die really quickly. I think that's not going to be too bad. And the good news is I can make videos for those that show you exactly how to do that. And hopefully that will help you out. Then we have defeat 10,000 enemies, and defeat 10 enemies within 1 second. 10,000 enemies is the exact same as last time. It's one of the longest achievements in the game. The only achievement that was longer beforehand was the Proud Souls one, because that was fucking stupid. And then there was a one for buying like every item from the shop, which took a hell of a long time. And then the defeat 10 enemies within 1 second, I'm thinking that's got something to do with the legendary Dark Knight mode, but I couldn't honestly tell you. Regardless, this is by far the most intimidating achievement list I have seen outside of like Quake 2 or Chrome Hounds or something just bullshit crazy, because not only is it skill dependent, but it's an insane level of mastery needed to do some of those things, and that's coming from somebody who's already done the first iteration of this list that people look at as almost impossible, even though it's completely not. Like, this is insane, and there's one part of me that welcomes it, there's another part of me that's like, yeah, I'm never going to get that, and then there's that third part that just doesn't really know. So, yeah folks, what do you think about the list anyhow? I think it's really interesting. I'm glad they've changed it. I can't wait to play Virgil. The footage that I do covering the game is going to be as Virgil or the other characters. I'm not going to be doing Nero, I'm not going to be doing Dante. It's going to be new content for this game, because I've kind of played it too much. And I want something fresh, so when it does drop at the end of June, look forward to seeing some Devil May Cry 4 goodness. Thank you very much for watching, and you take care now.